Hello students, welcome to SP9 videos from Inflection Point. Enterprise risk management is an evolving, emerging new discipline within the domain of risk management. Myself Gopal Goyal, with 20 years experience of teaching actuarial science, I have planned this video to be a rather short video, designed only to give you some basic introduction to this wonderful subject of ERM, starting from the reason why there is a shift towards ERM. We will come to the discussion of what exactly is ERM, and we will wind up with some key concepts of ERM and also exploring the reason behind the prevalent subjectivity where single term is used in multiple ways by different authorities or experts of the field. So in order to fully appreciate ERM, we should rather first understand TRM. TRM? Oh. TRM is traditional risk management. The approach to risk management that used to prevail before ERM came into vogue. So the traditional risk management approach is called silos-based approach. Different parts, different departments of an organization used to manage risks independently of other departments. And it was assumed that that was sufficient. But some experience told us that there are risks which have interactions with each other. There are risks which depend upon one another. So, two risks managed separately may have very different outputs as compared to when both those risks managed within one single entity, one single enterprise. Now, there is a broader issue involved here, and that is reductionism versus holism. These are two philosophies. The philosophy of holism emerged from the East, and the philosophy of reductionism emerged from the West. And just one sentence is enough to mark out the difference between these two philosophies. The reductionist philosophy believes that so the reductionist philosophy assumes or believes that the whole is merely the sum of its parts, while the holistic philosophy says that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. Essentially, this means that the reductionist philosophy says that if the whole is too complex, too large, then let us make no effort to understand the whole. try understanding its parts. Or if the whole is too complicated to manage its parts. So by managing its parts, we will be able to manage the whole. By understanding its parts, we will be able to manage the whole. Because their belief is that whole is nothing but the sum of its parts. In contrast to this, the holistic philosophy believes that the whole is more than the sum of its parts. Okay, so where apart from risk management, we see this distinct difference between reductionism and holism. I can give you many examples, right? When you talk of yoga or meditation, we talk of mind-body integration. So mind and body are not considered two separate parts. The aim is to understand the whole, to harness the whole, to fine-tune or to optimize the whole. When we talk of Ayurveda, there is only just one doctor and there is no sickness which is we call localized sickness. So when the person is sick, the whole body is sick, and the doctor or the Vaidji prescribes for the whole body. But when you look into allopathy, right, there are various specialists, heart specialists, lung specialists, liver specialists, kidney specialists and whatnot. And they only care for that particular part. But the point is, a kidney cannot function without being assisted by other parts. Without being assisted by the circulatory system and the excretory system and whatnot. So there are interactions between these parts. There are dependencies between these parts. So ignoring or underestimating these dependencies and interactions may miss the whole point. So this distinction you may find in so many other areas also, almost everywhere where there is a philosophical conflict. So very long, for say over many decades, risk management has been done with a reductionist mindset, with a reductionist philosophy, where the idea is that risk can be managed in parts. You don't have to worry for the whole. But of course, certain experiences made us wiser. Certain experiences, real life occurrences like global financial crisis of 2007-8 alerted us towards the danger of trying to manage the risk in parts. So an enterprise-wide approach where patient is not seen as sum of brain, kidney, heart, lungs, liver. Patient is a body, living being. So the whole enterprise is considered as one single unit, and we try to manage risk across that one single unit. So it is a fundamental difference between TRM and ERM. There is a fundamental difference of focus, approach and attitude. So it is a whole different mindset. It is not repackaging. It is just not repackaging or rebranding of the idea. If you want to find a parallel of this in the medical science or the treatment business, they realize that the only way we can avoid the impending mental health crisis in the world, where lots and lots of people are falling prey to depression, is to stop being reductionist in our approach and move back to holism. That is why the world now proudly celebrates the World Yoga Day and the World Meditation Day. The same change, similar change or the same conflict of philosophy is also guiding the shift from TRM to ERM. Instead of thinking in silos, instead of focusing on risk in silos, focusing on different departments, different products, consider enterprise as a whole. This is the fundamental difference. And this is what ERM is all about. the most important thing that we find in ERM is that a risk may originate in section A of the organization, but its repercussions may be felt in section B, C, D or other parts of the organization. So understanding these connections and managing the risk at a whole enterprise level is the only difference. So that is TRM versus ERM. So now let us try to understand ERM further. Number one, all experts say this, your study material also says this, and I am also a great advocate of this. As a student, you should not start searching for an all-encompassing definition of ERM. You should not waste your time, energy and efforts in construction or in search of a definition that tries to cover all possible aspects of ERM. The simple point is that even if you are able to find one such definition, it is not going to be any helpful. There are no benefits. Right? Rather, the focus should be on the overall concept. What is required is change of mindset from reductionism to holism. So again, the focus should be on the overall concept. And the overall concept is that we aim to optimize risk-adjusted returns. So the risk return have to be balanced and optimized. In order to be able to achieve that optimization, it is very important that we use appropriate assessment methodology. We appreciate well the interdependencies and interactions of this risk with other risks. If it is a new product being launched, how it will affect revenues and customer satisfaction of the existing products. That is also a very important thing to consider. Right? Things like that. So now you might be wondering that what holism would mean in the domain of risk management. Are we going to use holism or holistic thinking as a buzzword, or are there practical, actionable implications of the term holism? What does it entail for us? So number one, it entails enterprise-wide focus, and the approach should be consistent all through the enterprise. Otherwise, the approach would not be holistic. The risk management should be a top-down function. The board of directors must champion risk management. They must be the champion. They must be the driving force behind risk management function, and the risk management function must be considered as a dedicated function driven by the chief risk officer at the very top. So in this top-down approach, identification of risk, assessment of risk, reporting of risk must be incorporated into the routine work of all personnel involved. It is not a separate function to be done separately at leisure. It should be part of the day-to-day business operations. It should be integrated in a smoothless way with the day-to-day operations. And fourth point, you must know the difference between two words, static and dynamic. So there is no ERM until it is recognized that risks are dynamic in nature. So risk may unfold differently over time. It may not have grave consequences initially, but in later years it may bite us, right? Like a case in point, heavy use of plastic made human life very easy, simpler, convenient. Plastic is all around us, right? So initially the focus was only on the benefits of plastic. But after many years, or rather many decades, it turned out that it is non-biodegradable. So if a lot of waste is generated, how it will be managed, right? So as we say that fools rush in where angels fear to tread. Where angels think 10 times, 100 times that whether I should take this path or not, because they realize the dynamic nature of the risk, because they appreciate that something that makes my work easy now may cost me dearly sometime later. But fools, they don't care about this. They don't care about repercussions that are going to arise sometime later. So they rush into that situation. So then there is widespread adoption of potentially dangerous practices, potentially dangerous things or procedures. So in ERM, the dynamic nature of risks are duly recognized, duly cared for. So these are the 5 pointers for holism. Now similarly, the second leg of ERM is that the whole focus is on value creation. When I say risk return optimization, the focus is on value creation. And how do we achieve that? Risk appreciation and integration into all processes and all strategic decision making. It is not considered as a separate function. It is integrated into the day-to-day functioning. So all personnels, their work is designed in such a way that risk management is an integral part of it, not whole of it. Identification of risk, assessment of risk, or reporting it to their superiors that, okay, I encounter this risk. And this appreciation of risk and its consequences should be part of all strategic decision making at the enterprise level. So, as we try to seek safety against downside potentials of risk, similarly, we know how we can benefit or how can we profit from the upside potentials of those very risks. And that is how we balance the risk-return trade-off. When there have to be very well considered, well evaluated risk responses to each risky scenario. So our risk responses must be designed to keep in mind the holistic approach. So if we understand these key points, so we have taken the very first step towards understanding ERM. There is a lot more that is to come. Now before I address the mindset issues that may unravel the ERM implementation, and before I address the subjectivity issues, let me give you 2 acronyms to keep in mind or for an easy recall of the key concepts of ERM. So there are 2 acronyms that you can use for recalling this lecture. The first acronym, HOTTER. H stands for holism. A stands for all personnel. U stands for upside as well as downside potential of risks. T stands for top-down focus, top-down process. And finally, R stands for risk responses. Risk responses. Holistic approach, all personnel involved, upside and downside potentials both taken into consideration, top-down risk management function, and carefully evaluated risk response. Now, what can be the possible risk responses, right? Avoid it altogether. Don't accept it as bad risk. Retain the risk, maybe due to its upside potential outweighing the downside potential. So then manage it or mitigate it. Reduce it, either in likelihood or in impact. Or share it, which literally means transfer it partially. So these are the 5 risk responses, and each of them need to be carefully evaluated. Okay, now we come to the very important point of subjectivity, and your official study material will also keep on alerting you that be careful, be careful. This term will not always mean exactly the same thing, and this term may be used differently by different authorities or different experts in the domain. So if you follow this textbook, this term may have a slightly different meaning, but if you switch from this textbook to second textbook, you may find it slightly different meaning. Is this a problem? Yes, this is a problem. Is this confusing? Yes, this is confusing. Is this frustrating? Yes, at times it can be frustrating. So, as a student, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to be very clear about exactly what do we mean when we use a particular term. So, that makes SP9 a little bit different from other subjects, right? In other subjects, we had the luxury of having the glossary. Our term would mean what it means in the glossary. And we were not bearing this burden of explaining what we mean when we use any particular term, because the meaning is given in the glossary. So there is some consensus. But where there is no consensus, we carry an additional burden that we clearly specify what exactly do we mean by the term we are using, right? Okay. The silver lining in the cloud is that not all the terms have multiple meanings, right? Certain terms have multiple meanings. We should be careful about that. We should note it down in a separate register. We should maintain this record that this term may be used differently by different authors. So this is a term comes with an invisible sticker, handle with care, right? So you can do one thing, right? Make a small notebook or notepad and give it a title, handle with care. Terms that require handling with care. So note down different meanings. Now the question arises, why is this subjectivity, right? Why our experts don't agree? Please note that ERM is not unique. This problem arises in all disciplines, all subjects during its formative years. So it is still an evolving or an emerging subject. ERM is not a done and dusted thing. So when some subject is evolving, these years are like childhood years of ERM. So ERM has not yet matured. So when you study a mature subject, you will not find this problem of subjectivity. There will be enough number of experts. Through conferences and seminars, they will evolve some consensus and a common vocabulary, common glossary will emerge. Somehow that is yet to happen in the domain of ERM. And you have to be careful of this. You have to be careful about this. Now the last thing, and the most important, right? It is the thing more than a wishful thinking that someone who has been brought up and educated with a reductionist philosophy, with a reductionist mindset, where the entire education system was reductionist, guided by reductionist philosophy, will one day magically transform into someone who starts thinking holistically. So if there is implementation of ERM, which is a top-down process driven by the board of directors, and the board of directors fail to realize this requirement that mindsets have to change. Mindsets have to change. If you are trying to implement ERM strategies, if you are trying to bring about ERM into your organization, but you are doing it with a reductionist mindset, the ERM itself can become a big source of risk for your organization. It is a real serious threat. So what is required is change of mindset. Attitude, change of attitude. And what can worsen is this inflated overconfidence. I understand. I have got it. I have got it. So the board of directors and the chief risk officer, right, should try to incorporate within the training sessions the change of mindset, highlighting the issue that unless we change the mindset, things are not going to improve. ERM is not going to deliver its expected benefits. Rather, it can be counterproductive if there is no mindset change. That is all in this video.